Hey, and by the way, when we're recording, I see you as the main video when we're recording. Is that how that was working?
No, you see, it was kind of what Michael was explaining before. Everybody's screen is set up a little different, right? So if you
Okay.
have the presenter view, but whenever you're sharing screen, that should be the dominant picture. So the dominant picture will be um, your manual.
Okay. And
Happy
and
birthday
so
to Happy birthday to Mozart, by the way. I don't know if everyone knows that.
oh, that's the reason.
Mozart's
Okay.
birthday today.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
All
All right.
right.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, congratulations on making a great decision to pause the chaos and the fast-paced market to join us this morning. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. We got a lot to cover. So, but I did wanted to say thank you and applaud you for a good decision. I think today we're gonna like many of these coaching sessions, we're gonna tackle the things that are really pertinent to the market that we're experiencing right now. So, okay, we've had not just historic low inventory. Frankly, we could have 3 times the inventory and still have historically low inventory. So we're absolutely crazy low on inventory. So it's causing an objection that we're seeing. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. Here, it goes something like this. So this was an objection I heard from one of our agents that came from a seller. They said, we know that there's going to be multiple buyers trying to buy our house. It'll likely sell over the weekend. We're not going to pay a 6% commission. There's a tag onto this. So they found somebody who offered to do it for a lot less and said that would save them some money. So they said, we're not going to pay a 6% commission when the home is going to be sold in 3 days. So we have tackled this variation of this objection, I think, a few months ago, where we kind of debated this concept of 3 days the house is sold. We kind of step back and say, well, the house really isn't closed and sold in 3 days. That's not happening. So let's talk about this. Okay. So there is a skill set here. There's a skill set. When you hear an objection, what is the first thing that you should start to think of? Tell me what do you do when you hear an objection? What's step one? Let's put it in the chat.
Demean and belittle the person who raised it.
Didn't we learn that from Alan Dalton? Especially if you could demean them in front of their family.
Right. Make sure a loved one is around and then demean and embarrass them.
Yeah, then demean them. Okay, good one. So, all right, maybe some serious responses here. I'll go back up. Seek to understand. Very good. Yeah, that's like, let's listen. Pretty good. Yeah, roll my eyes. Say things like, are you kidding me? Acknowledge their thought. Very good. Ask to clarify. So, okay, so clarify. That's got a question in it, I would think, Stacy. I understand how you feel. That's really good. I mean, that's one of my, I guess, common ways to communicate with these is to say, I get you. It does seem that way, doesn't it? So this acknowledgement, see what happens, guys, if we don't acknowledge. What happens if we minimize the objection and we say things like, well, that really just doesn't, it lacks merit, and just start arguing. What do you think will happen there? What's going to happen when we try, we don't see it from their point of view? So yeah, you're going to win. You're going to win. You're not going to win those at all. Salespeople never win arguments. So avoid argument style. If you feel like you're playing tennis, you're doing it wrong. Okay. If you feel like you're playing tennis, they lob something, then you lob it back. And although, you're losing, you're going to lose that's a failed pattern. So will you write this down? We're going to be on page, okay, Joe, let's go there. Let's go to page 132. And let's make some notes on how to handle some of these objections that we're going to get right now. Okay, as you can see on the screen, this is kind of the common, very, very popular way to handle an objection. I understand how you feel. Number two, others have felt the same way. Here's what we found. The only, well, there's flaws. Look, there's an exception to every rule, guys. There's flaws in these things. So you got to have wisdom when it comes to these things. So be careful. If someone ever tells you something and you don't know how they feel, let's just be honest and not use this one. Okay. I mean, there's some cases where you wouldn't want to say, I understand how you feel. Okay. Okay. Joe, did I lose the screen? Are we back? Okay, there it is. So go down to it's advanced handling objections and look at how we break this down a little further, where we're saying, we're listening, we're asking questions to further understand. We're showing empathy. It can be challenging to be in this place. We can restate it to make sure we've got it. Then we isolate. Is there anything else that you think might be a concern or standing in the way? And then number 6, this is, again, what we found. This is the answer. Number 7 is a tie-down question, which, kind of summarizes and gets a chance to have them affirm what they really want, but it's phrased in a question. And then we, all we need to do is authorize the paperwork, then we can get started. So I have a huge warning here. Will you please just put somewhere in your margin, don't be scripted and lead with heart. So maybe, lead with heart, don't be scripted. But let's have some sincere, heartfelt conversations with people, and don't be scripted. So we kind of memorize patterns, but we try to stay authentic and sincere as we're communicating with people. Okay. Next thing I asked you, what's the first thing you should do when you think of objections? The first thing is to listen, right? That's step 1. We listen. Look at number 2, though. I'm already starting to think, what are the questions that I can ask? So this is the anti-statement. If you make statements, then you're going to play tennis with these objections, and you don't want to do that. Okay. It's like you against them. That we've got to change that. You've got to get on the same side of the net as they are. Okay. Again, write all these notes down. I'm going to give it really quick because we're going to be done with this objection in 5 minutes and move on. Okay. So take all these notes as fast as you can. Get on the same side. Don't play tennis. Okay. The way you do that is you ask questions. So back to this objection where they say, look, it's going to be sold in 3 days. There's more buyers than we know what to do with. We've heard this from so many agents. And so we're just not going to pay the 6% commission. What questions can we ask here? Get the chat and let's get some questions that we can ask. Jill's got a great one. What matters to you more, a lower commission or a higher price? This is starting to get at the heart of the matter. I like that, Jill. What else could we do that's kind of in this ballpark? What else could we ask? Think about a question you could ask. Anybody? Kira, I know you got something. Debbie, come on. John, hit me. Okay, so Kara is kind of, this is a great response, Kara. When you say blank, do you mean blank? That's like, could you clarify that for me? Timeline. So Allison, wow, she's typing on her phone. Nice job. So what's the timeline? What's your goal, end goal? Thank you, Jim. Debbie, have you considered a list price that would satisfy you, include the 6 commission? Okay, good. These are good questions. What is your understanding of my role in this transaction? Thanks, Joe. I don't think it shouldn't be lost on us. Okay. I don't want to get like if, as long as you did this, you're fine. See, something back in way early in the presentation may have led us to get to this point where they don't understand. Okay. So we shouldn't be finding ourselves with a lot of objections, frankly. We should get a few that sound a little bit more like concerns, not objections. Like, this is such a hardline objection. I'm not paying a commission at 6% because the market's so hot. Okay. Well, it's very flawed. Okay. So it's very flawed to think that if we just lower commission, that we somehow have a better experience. Okay. All right. So this needs to be, in our, let's turn the page, Joe. I want to give you, I want to give you, well, you know what? Stay there for a sec and let's do the 1, 2, 3. I understand how you feel. So I might say something like, matter of fact, somebody role play with me. How about one of our brokers? Mike, you want to role play with me? Unmute yourself. You can't? Okay. Unmute Mike. There you go. We got you.
There we go.
So I may have had a poor presentation. So that's led me to this objection. So go ahead and give me the objection, Mike, and let's see if we can talk this through. Okay, go ahead.
The market is really hot. I know I can sell my home really fast and we could have it under contract in like 3 days. So I don't feel like 6% is a fair amount to pay for a commission.
Got it. Okay. Well, hey, I understand. Right now, what we're reading all over is how fast this market is. And we do hear that, frequently. Can I ask you just a couple of questions? Are we more concerned about the closing of the transaction or your bottom line? Now, you had mentioned earlier to me that there is another transaction looming out there for you. I did, but I didn't catch how much you needed to net from your sale. Do you know what that is? You have
about $500,000.
Loan officer told you what that might be?
Yeah, about 500,000.
Okay, that's what we need then, is the total net. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if we do net 500,000, then the costs are above that. So I guess, guys, what I'd be doing right here is I'm grabbing my calculator and we're starting to come up with a plan as to whether or not the net of 500,000, what are we going to be up against? Okay. So what are we going to be up against? Let's just suppose it's in the ballpark. It's possible. Can we concede that it's possible? Everyone nod. You guys are all with me? Thank you for the feedback. Zoom is so fun. Okay, so Mike, back to our role play. So here's what I'm thinking, Mike. First of all, it's going to be really critical then, isn't it, for us to net the 500,000? What happens if we don't get 500,000?
I haven't even considered that possibility, frankly. I may still be able to do the things I want to do, but it's unknown.
Okay. Okay. This is probably, if there was a spouse involved, I would probably look to them right now and just make sure I'm getting the full picture. The trouble with doing, let's pause for a second. The trouble with doing role plays is they're not real. Okay. So the only thing that I can really teach you are patterns, and I want to teach you authenticity, but I'm totally screwed if I don't know the answer to these questions, right? Shouldn't I know the answer to these questions? So Mike, let's go back to role play. So I haven't really figured that out yet. Okay. Is the 500,000 the down payment, or is the 500,000 the down payment and the closing costs? Was your loan officer clear on that? Or do you know?
Yes, they were. That is the down payment and the closing cost.
Okay. That's the total amount that you need. Are you already under contract with another property?
No, but I've identified one.
Okay, so you'll be competing against other buyers to win that bid on that purchase?
Yes.
Okay. Um, this is where, in reality, can you imagine you not knowing the answer to this? By the time you get an objection, you're going to know what's going on way before you get the objection of I'm not paying a 6% commission, right? Okay, so the technique here is to keep digging. And what we're hoping to do, see, what do you think's going on in Mike's mind when I'm saying, is that the total amount? And he goes, oh man, what happens if I don't get 500,000? And Mike, we've got another thing going on here. As many offers as there may be on your property, how will we go about winning the bid on your purchase if we can't be solidly convinced on the sale of the property we're currently in? That's going to be a real mountain to climb. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that train of thought here is to dig into the numbers, to focus on the net. Everyone write this down. Focus on the net result. So because we are not transactional brokers, guys, we're not incentivized just to close. We are incentivized to net the most. Okay. Everybody good with that? So let's get back to, that's why I had to know, what do you need to net? Okay. What do you need to net? Okay. We can also go to time frame. And I think it's important to understand that if we don't contract with the best buyer, okay, if we don't contract with the best buyer, this is going to cost us. And what is the nature of the closing that we're going to have, coming up in just a sec? Hey, pause for just a second, you guys. When are you filming? Right now? Because the class is over in like 40 minutes. Can you wait 40 minutes? Are you sure? You're going to hit your... Brandy Strong, you guys, have set up 5 microphones, studio lights, and 5 cameras for an interview right outside my office. So, okay. Okay, with Scott? Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. Yeah, all right. Sorry. We're going to keep trucking here. The other one I want you to put down in this market is a struggle with appraisals. Okay. And I, you guys know me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to the appraisal form. I'm going to talk about the complexities of this. So write down in your margin, slow down, and show complexities. Okay, so I understand how you feel, Mike. A lot of sellers feel the same way. You know what we found is that lowering the commission does not have the automatic effect on raising the net. As a matter of fact, often it costs the net. It lowers the overall net. Okay, but I think there's more to that. So this is why I would dive into, let's talk about how much we need. Let's talk about what that really looks like, how we find the best buyer, the appraisal challenges that we're likely to see, and choosing the right buyer. And it's not just price. It's going to have to be a lot of the terms. So slow down and show the complexities. Okay. But Joe, can you go back to show screen? I'm going to put a bow on this and show you a scripted answer. Let's go back. Joe, are you there? Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, let's go, turn to page, let's go to 134. You guys turn to 134, and I want to show you, let's look at response number 3. That's a good question, one that has been asked before. Your bottom line or net from the sale is most important, isn't it? So I could phrase this a different way. So Mike, that $500,000 is going to be pretty crucial. If we hit that, if we don't, it could cause some problems, couldn't it? And then you say, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it could cause you some problems. And I say, Mike, I don't want to see that happen. Moving and selling is stressful enough. So, let's do everything we can to hit that. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, and I want the same thing. You guys following here? So the mistake that some folks make, we hear about this at Brookshire, we hear about these stories, but lowering the commission rate as a potential way of increasing the net. Now, what we found, see that word, there's the structure. What we have found is that the collective services we provide are designed to do just that, which is to net you that $500,000 that you need, and to win that bid on the new purchase, so you don't miss out on that other house that you want. And to increase your overall sales price. That it will net you the most. So we stick to the commission rate because it's the best way to obtain the highest possible price and net at closing. Now there is, and I think I could add a question and a tie down here, which would be, and at the end of the day, isn't that what this is all about? And see, that's the question. Okay, Joe, go back to the pattern one more time on page 132. So yeah, 132, there's that tie down question. So you're going to have to practice these things. It takes practice to have patience to listen. It takes practice to have those questions come up to you and really dig in and understand, empathy and restating the question. So if I'm understand, so let me go back to that one. Hey, Mike, if I'm going to understand you, then if we don't net 500,000, we may not be able to win the bid on the new purchase. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it sounds like this netting the 500,000 is really monumental and the real focus of this entire transaction for you, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so there's another question, how to restate it. Okay, is there anything else that's giving you concern over this process? In other words, if hypothetically we were doing the commission at a lower rate, would you choose me in Berkshire Hathaway?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. By the way, pause. You know how many times I've heard people say, look, I'd prefer Berkshire Hathaway, but I'm willing to take less and pay less. It's not a bad place to be, guys. Not a bad place to be. So then we go down to the tie down question. Well, I think like we've said, at the end of the day, this is monumental, isn't it? So I think we need to tackle that, don't we? And make that the focus. Don't you agree? Yes. And now look at the spouses too, as they nod their heads. Okay. Well, and then we can get started. Okay. Let's go off of that. Any comments or questions you guys want to chat with me for a minute about this or give your tips?
Hey, I would, I don't know if this fits anywhere. To me, when I hear the homie question, my response and my advice had always been to really separate. Don't put yourself in the same category as homie, and don't try to compete with them on the same level. And by that I mean separate the two propositions. So if someone says, I'm thinking of homie, my initial response would be, well, why would you pay that much money for that type of service? It seems really expensive. You can pay $100 out there to get your home on the internet. Why wouldn't you just do that? Why would you pay the expensive service of homie to do what they do? There's other people who do it for far less. So don't put yourself in the same category and compete on, oh, we do this or we do that compared to homie. Homie is the homie concept has been around for 15, 20 years or more, right? Since the beginning of real estate. So why would you pay such an expensive amount for that type of service? You can get it for $200, by the way. That's what you should be shopping for if that's what you want. Because you're not competing. We're not competing. They're going for the incredibly low budget, and we're offering full service. So they're two separate things, and don't equate the two.
Yeah. Very, very good. Mike, you gave me another thought. Joe, can you unshare screen? This is where I wish I had a whiteboard. Very good, Mike. Very, very good. I like that. So let's just say I grab the calendar and we have people saying, well, it's going to sell over the weekend. Okay. As if we're going to put the house on the market right now. Slow down. The house isn't ready to be put on the market. I had somebody suggest that our marketing had very little value. because there's so many buyers. It's not true. It's not true. Even though the demand is at peak, remember, it's not finding a buyer, okay? We've got plenty of buyers. That's not the problem. The problem is to find the buyer that nets you the most. Okay, that's the problem. You see the difference? We don't just need a buyer. If you want a buyer, then that's transactional. But if you want to net the most, it's a completely different battle. So if you're going to go after the battle of finding the one that nets you the most, then we can't have it on this weekend. Okay, we've got, look, where's Debbie? Debbie, we talk, we get overwhelming response is it a condo? Because we staged it, right? We slowed down, we decluttered. I'm sure there was some recommendations there. Staging was done. Then photographs were ready, not ahead of time. We didn't jump the gun here. I think it took us a few weeks to get the property ready before we hit the market. And when we hit the market, it hit the market right because the home deserves that. And your bottom line deserves that, doesn't it, Mike?
Absolutely.
I mean, don't you think we should put more effort to netting you most and not try to cut corners? See, yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to argue with that, but it's kind of getting real. I mean, it's very. I guess I wouldn't say this to somebody, but it's pretty unintelligent to just say, "Oh, well, if I lower the commission, I increase my bottom line." Okay, it's just not what we're seeing in the lab experiments. Okay, because we get the best buyer, that's a different battle. We need exposure, we need great marketing. And that does generate a higher price buyer. So slow down when it comes to the calendar, picture that out. See, all of a sudden it doesn't sell in 3 days, does it? It took 2 to 3 weeks to get the property ready, right? Then we've got to manage all those offers that come in. Okay, and it's not just an auction. It's not just highest price wins. There's a lot more going on than that. So let's keep our eye on the ball. Okay. I hope you feel a little bit more confident about that kind of objection. It takes a little bit of practice to memorize the pattern. So I'd encourage you to do that. Okay. All right. Let's go, Joe. Let's go to page 25. Okay, page 25. Not 125, 25. Okay. DJ Joe spinning the vinyl. Okay. Well, how many of you see anything on this list that you could make an emphasis for this year? Anything stand out to you? Which one of these skill sets do you think you could work on this year? There's a lot on here. We've got the general skill sets on the left, and then very real estate specific skill sets on the right. For those of you who are just like, if this is your first coaching session, there's so many answers to the question is, what is this business about? Some of the ingredients are in on this page, and they're skill sets. And I was thinking last night, what's the difference in talent and skill? What's the difference in talent and skill? And what would you rather have? And would you rather be really talented, or would you rather have a lot of skill sets? So there's probably a secret third answer here. But okay, thanks for playing along. Keep the chats coming. Matter of fact, if you guys don't know this, I go back and read all of these chats. Joe sends them to me so that I can make sure I'm listening to what you're saying and I don't miss something. So from the last workshop we did last week was a phenomenal success. We think we had over 300 people tuned in. That's by far the best we've ever achieved there. High water mark for us. I read every one of those comments. And some of you are hilarious, by the way. So keep them coming. But all right, why don't we identify one or two, maybe three skill sets that you want to work on? We did just talk about overcoming objections. I see some of you have put negotiation. There's a lot on here. I kind of like being a calming influence is one of my favorites. I can always improve these skills you can learn. Yeah. What would you rather be? Would you rather be talented or have skill sets? Well, seems like to me, talent is something that might almost become natural. Some things are just easier. You kind of get it already. Maybe our maker makes us that way, but skill sets took a lot of work. And I think the secret answer here is to be talented and have skill sets. So have your cake and eat it too. So my challenge to you today is to pick, at least one on this list, and then apply the goal pattern that we talked about in the seminar. Okay, let's go to page 26. Just turn the page there. This is more of a study. I'm not gonna spend a ton of time in it, but the concept here is to realize where you get the highest return on your time. So there's certainly low return on energy. That's what the E is, and then high return on the investment of that energy. So where do you get the most out of where you spend your time? Will you write on that page, consider my power hours? Somewhere on that page, consider my power hours, which are hours spent in those key areas. Yes, thanks, Joe, for writing that in. Consider my power hours. Because a lot of my power hours, where I get the most out of my power hours, I'll just suggest that comes with active prospecting and meaningful contacts. That being the key adjective in that sentence, meaningful contacts is where I get the best return on my lead generation. Okay, so consider that. A lot of times we are on the treadmill, we spend a lot of energy, we go nowhere. And there's a matter of fact, there's a page in here, I think we put common time wasters that would illustrate that. It's actually, write this down. Page 84 are the common time wasters. Matter of fact, Joe, I think you had a lot to do with the list. Yeah. These are things that take a lot of time. They don't produce a lot. And I like logo design, naming my team. We spend weeks or hours and hours on this, and it doesn't generate a lead. It doesn't convert a lead, and it rarely closes a sale. So yeah. Oh, a long lunch. Yeah. I'll be back in 30 minutes, turns into 4 hours. So yeah, that's probably not a good use of time. Okay, let's go to 27. Back to 27. And on this page, let's write, my notes are CEOs know their numbers. Okay. So again, this is probably some homework, but CEOs know your numbers because the data is very telling. Where do your leads originate? And where are they coming from? And what are we doing to continue that pattern? So this is a 3-year history, and it's asking you, where's your business coming from? So make sure you know that. This is the reason I put it next to page 26 is because of the concept many of us know, the Pareto effect, which was a challenge issue that said that 80% of our results were coming from 20% of our efforts. But those 20% of our efforts were so laser focused, they generated most of what we needed, right? So it's kind of asking the same thing. Well, where is business coming from? Where do you get the most out of your time? Because that's where we need to double down, okay? Okay, all right, next page. I did mention page 28 in the business planning seminar, again, knowing your numbers. But this one is knowing the numbers that affect the seller. Let's go back to this objection. What if Mike said, well, I'm listening to you, Will, but the competition says that they produce the same net results or better than Berkshire Hathaway. And then what if he said, so what is your percentage of list price sold? And let's say that you don't have the answer. Well, talk about laying a landmine for a competing agent. I think I'd know my numbers, so let's do that. Let's make this a goal to know our numbers. And if you don't have numbers personally, use the office. And if you don't have office numbers, we use our company, and our company is going to be outstanding above the MLS. And that's kind of what we compare to. The MLS produces this, and we're producing, Y. Okay. So 3 columns that we need to know the answer to. You need to know your average days on market, because that's your time. How long does it take you to sell property? Then let's go 2 over and get our percentage of sold price, and then our percentage of listings sold. Now, in this market, we're going, well, it's 100%. It's 100%. It's almost every listing. Okay, gotcha. Is that at every price range? Believe it or not, there's still properties sitting on the market. So let's consider to take a broader approach to that. Now, we know we're kind of dealing with the COVID effect on some of these, so we don't need to embellish and we don't need to exaggerate. But if it's important, like it says up in the paragraph there, if it's important to our client, it must be important to us. And if we're going to talk about netting the most, we better have some data to support it. Don't you guys agree? Don't we need to have some data to support that we can net the most? Okay. Thank you for nodding. Zoom is a tough crowd, Joe. I'm telling you, this is a tough crowd. Okay. Next page. Let's go to 30. Page 30. This is one of the huge epiphanies that I've had is, I've coached and helped and counseled and advised, agents now since I became a broker when I was 28 years old. And I have failed so many times. But I'll tell you, I can't tell you that my heart's in the right place. And eventually, I think when your heart is in the right place, you just figure out what works. Well, this is what I call the core 4. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, but this is a very coaching fundamental principle. So we're talking about, our daily disciplines and how we go about things, or principles that we're trying to learn, and things that we're trying to do and become more than we are. Then I think about these 4 concepts. Okay. So the first thing I want you to see here is in this graph is that there's a gap between ideas or hope and what we believe to be true, that there's a gap there. There's also a gap between what we do know and whether or not we apply what we know. So in other words, they don't always go hand in hand. You could know something but not do it. Everyone understand that? Like, can you know that? And you're over here on this side, so don't think I'm looking away. But have you ever known something that you should do but you don't do it? So I think it's very true that they don't just link together. Exercise, right? I know I should eat well. I know I should exercise. Take my vitamins. I know I should be more active in my meaningful contacts. I should probably do a better job of showing and expressing my gratitude to past clients. I know I should do that. I should probably hold some open houses. I know these things, and yet I don't do it. Okay, so that's why the gaps. But notice the difference in the relationship between the action and the result. Notice there is no gap. In other words, if someone only ate well one day, there would already be a positive effect. If I only prospected for just an hour, there would still be an effect to that. Okay. Now I've used hope, belief, action, results as kind of the head marker there, but the rest of those words to me mean the same thing. It's to describe the phase. So go down to where it says 1, if I turn up the intensity of blank, I would get what? What do you think the answers are there? If I turn up the intensity of blank, I would get what? And remember, look at what all these phases are kind of being described as. So here's the answer. In number 1, if I turn up the intensity of hope, right there, Joe, yep, hope, I would get belief. Okay, now hope is just a word. I mean, it's a great concept, and hope is amazing. Ever meet someone without hope, and it's pretty easy to see. It's very sad. But we're talking about idea, vision, concepts. Matter of fact, you could write that in on this paragraph right below idea, right? Concepts. Okay, these are things we think of. This is wish, the things that reside in our minds. Like, it's an idea. Okay. Down here on number 2, Joe, let's write these answers in. If I turn up the intensity of belief, I would get action. Okay. Now, that's very linear. Notice this pattern. I could walk right on through this. I could go from an idea, like, wow, this prospecting idea that I have, if I can start to believe it and understand it, there's the know-how of the ideas in the next. Move your cursor over to know-how. There you go. And then if I can raise that to the conviction level, then I can get into application of the know-how I just learned and then get the effect I want. Okay? That's very linear. Turn the page, Joe. And let's talk about how can we go in between these with things we're trying to do and trying to become that we don't yet know. So this is a question of how do you bridge the gap between idea and know-how? How do you do that? How do you go from an idea to having some intellect? Well, turn the page again, and actually all the answers are there. So yeah, there they are. Not all the answers, but the idea of the answers. So we study, we research, okay? Write down, I become what I study. I don't know, I've said this a million times. We become what we study. So if you're not studying anything, it's very dangerous, okay? It's not very fulfilling either. I just try to find time to study. I beg you to do that. You'll be glad you did. And it doesn't have to be an enormous amount of time. It can be a fragment of a power hour. There is a power hour that's study. Even if it's a fragment of that hour, it still matters. I become what I study. Okay, if I can start to have some insight, then my conviction of this thing will start to grow, right? Okay, now let's go to the next page, and we're now saying, well, okay, Will's asked me to have meaningful contacts. I gave you 6 tactics last week that you should think about. One of my favorite one is, can you believe it? Can you believe what your house is worth, right? And so we reach out and go, I've done some research for you. Can you believe it, And this was a tactic, okay? But some of you might say, I don't know if I can do that, okay? So how do we go from, but I think Will's right. I think the concepts of prospecting that we're talking about are correct, but I don't yet have a conviction of it, okay? So how do we go from a belief of something and not yet the action? So one way is to build the conviction. But there's other things that we could do. So turn the page, Joe. It's on page 34 are the answers. So which ones stand out to you? And you're going to notice that these are very kind of power hour type answers. First of all, engage accountability partner. How many of you have goals that you've never reached this year? Like you're going to reach for an all-time high or do something you've never done. Is that a little scary to you? You're going to get out of your comfort zone. Wouldn't it be a lot more probable if you could engage accountability partner to go on the journey with you? This is a gym buddy, This is a diet partner kind of a thing, We'll study together. We'll prospect together, right? Okay. Kara, good question. I'll tell you about that. What does the countdown mean? We can schedule things. This is last night, my wife, was kind of having an overwhelmed moment. you know, and I said, well, grab your calendar and don't do it all in one day. And don't try to do it all in 1 week. Okay, so we can get, sometimes the very first step is just to put it on the calendar, right? The next one is time block activities. Right next to that one, power hours. So time block activities, this is power hours. This is where we dedicate a certain amount of time for the things we know we should do. And then those are appointments, and it's, you know, it's 3 to 4, right? It's 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And that's the block of time. And I get everything I can done in that 1 hour. And then when the hour's over, I move on to the next thing, because not just one thing matters. Okay. This is the better way to real estate. The better way to real estate. We're going to love what we do, guys. Okay. We're not going to despise it. We're going to love what we do. Okay. And Melinda, you're right. It is Mel Robbins. Okay. That's next. Okay. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a mental exercise that Mel Robbins made popular in her, I guess she did a TED talk about don't wait to feel like it, that your emotions will let you down when you need them. So you're not going to wake up in the morning and go, okay, let's go. Remember all the things we were going to do this morning? And you're like, well, I don't feel like it. Well, she's saying, don't wait to feel like it. And there was a mental exercise that she started to realize in a pattern of a countdown that she's going to count from 5 to 1. And then when she hits 1, she's going to act on that thing. Okay. And maybe that's just getting out of bed. You know, maybe that's going to the gym. Maybe that's making my meaningful contacts, or working on my database, or learning something, or taking a coaching class, or understanding Real Scout or Moxie or the MLS better, or CMAs, whatever the thing is. Okay, that there was a countdown to get myself ready to do it. Kind of a very like an athlete's approach to some things. Like, ready, let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yes, Kara, sometimes when I've laid in bed, those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1s have become like they were in slow-mo. It may have taken 10 minutes to count from 5 to 1. Okay.
And Will, your results don't care about your feelings.
Yeah. Good. Good. How many times I've said, I don't feel like it. And then inside I go, feeling like it wasn't a requirement. There's a lot of times that I've gone ahead and done it anyway, you know, regardless of how I felt, right? I just did it. So yeah, Nicole, the fact you will never really feel like it. That's what she said. You're never really going to feel like it. Because anytime you're trying to do something you've never done, it's always uncomfortable. So if you're always uncomfortable, that means you're never going to feel like it, right? An agent said to me just yesterday, I don't believe in open houses. And I'm like, well, your belief in the open house is not really required. I mean, it would be better, but it's not really required. Let's go to the next page, because I think I just kind of, I just kind of took my own thunder on this. What if we move the action to be prior to belief? And this is kind of what Mel Robbins is hinting at, is that it's not required to feel like it. Okay. It's not even required to believe it. So sometimes we just have to say, well, I'll do it, and then I'll tell you if I believe it. So the big aha here is that the belief came post action. Okay. The belief only became a belief after we did the thing. Okay. So when you're hearing Jamie or Joe or myself or Mike or Kevin Larson, Kevin Cameron, I mean, or other mentors around you saying, I highly recommend that you do X and Y and Z, and you think of those things and you go, well, I don't really believe that that's true, then this kind of core 4 is putting that in its place. Okay, you can have an idea without having a belief in it, or the intellect of it, because there's no study. Okay, you can have high intellect, but no application. So how do we make sure that we can manage our own mentality and attitudes and ultimately get disciplined on things, even when we're human? We recognize we're human. We recognize we are sometimes in our own way. We recognize I'm sometimes my worst enemy. And how do I manage that? You know, how can I get consistent when my human experience is so inconsistent? Okay. So
everyone on this training has a beautiful example of that. If you've ever taught somebody to ride a bike, because when they first get on that bike, they don't believe they can do it. And you convince them to keep going, you convince them to pedal. Everyone is probably run behind with their hand underneath that seat, like, running awkwardly down the sidewalk until the momentum carries the rider for the first time. And at this moment, in that action, when they're finally riding down the sidewalk with the wind in their hair and they actually are doing it, that's what bridges their gap between I hope I can learn my bike and I believe I can ride my bike, because now I've just ridden my bike.
Right. Joe, go off the share screen for a sec. You can see the rest of those answers in there. I hope that speaks to you. You guys see what I'm wearing? And so this is my exercise watch, right? So, and I've said this before, but what if this tracked my meaningful prospecting? What if it tracked my power hours spent in reaching out to people, like my past clients? What if I could tap in here and it would say, oh, here's your history. My brother, who was my mentor for Invent It, right? I should invent that. Yeah, because the Garmin never lies. That's what my brother would always say. The Garmin never lies. And we were getting ready for my very first marathon. He's like, bro, there's 4 runs you cannot miss. Okay. And I want you to take a picture of your Garmin. This is before we had the sharing notifications. And so, he would say, remember, the Garmin never lies. And it was weird because if I was on a bike, it would know I was biking. Okay. So you couldn't cheat the thing. It's believe me, I tried one time, because I'm like, well, let's just see if I tell it I'm running, but I'm really going to go biking. It didn't work. How much of this business do you think is about discipline? How much of this business is about discipline? Like doing the things we know we should do. How much of it? It's a lot. Look at these answers. I mean, so that's why the core 4, because we better be real about what we're up against. We're kind of up against ourselves in what some of our human tendencies are. This is why I was so passionate about you knowing why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you in real estate? What drives you? I look at your faces. I've gotten to know so many of you on a personal level, and you're the best group of people I've ever been around. Okay, by far. And there's nothing you can't do. And for all of our agents that I know, because I don't know of anyone who doesn't have their heart in the right place. Okay, you have your heart in the right place. And if your purpose is clear on what you want to do, and you've selected your strategies and how you're going to go about doing it, then I think we're most of the way there, because you know your why. Right, John? Right. Know your why. Because if you know your why, that's going to be the energy we need in the tank to do the things on a daily basis that it requires. Now, if we're not doing those things, here's what happens. And here's how you can spot somebody. First of all, the results are not there. That's easy to see. We don't have listings, we don't have buyers, we don't have contracts, we don't have relationships, and we're struggling on the other end of the equation. Okay. But we also see those who are always preparing and never really prospecting in a meaningful way. Okay. You'll see the disease that reveals is there's a lot of passive prospecting, like email campaigns and stay in touch campaigns, which are fine, but they don't really generate a lot of good relationships very well. Okay, so I'm challenging that a little bit, where I think it's a part of what we do, but it's not the whole thing we do. If you were not on the leadership the goal setting meeting, remember I gave you some really good tactics, and there's a lot of tactic ideas, but just to remind you, we had one time a week, we take a key person to lunch, okay, with masks, right? We send 5 thank you cards a day, or even one. Okay. But we do something to show gratitude every day, especially to those who support your business. Okay. We do the home value estimate. Like, can you believe the appreciation that we've seen in your neighborhood and in your property? And we run the comparables to even show it. We do the remember when with past clients. Remember when we saw that house for the first time, or we, did this. It's a remember when, or I drove by your house. These are reach out calls. These are a lot more meaningful than anything we could likely email. Okay. Although I do like to combine a great email like our newsletters and then call them and say, can you believe our market? And add that together. Did you see the newsletter I just sent you? Could you believe Snow Basin? Could you believe Pepperwood at this time? Like, this is crazy. And that's kind of a cool conversation to have and an easy one to have. So those are disciplines though. So I would hope that you would recognize that we're all human and take some of these tips on how to go from an idea to a more intellectual understanding and belief, and then take that belief and get it into action. Because that's where the results are. They're right behind the door of discipline. Okay, the results you want are right behind the door of discipline. They're just right there. So let's go do it. Okay. Okay. Joe, I think you can probably stop recording.